Next up, we have C29 Metals. C29 Metals trading under the ASX code C29 with a market capitalization of around $11.2 million. C29 Metals is a company focused on powering the clean energy transition through the systematic exploration and development of its portfolio of uranium and copper assets. The company's main focus is the Ulator uranium project in Kazakhstan. Presenting for the company today, we have Managing Director Shannon Green. Shannon, welcome to the network. Please take it away.
Thanks, Peter. It's fantastic to be here today, and thank you to everyone that has dialed in. Okay, next slide, please. Just to sort of set the scene, due to the ASX Listing Rules, particularly around foreign estimates and historic exploration results that go to make up foreign estimates. Once a company releases those results as part of a transaction announcement release, the company is no longer then allowed to republish those results. So hence, our presentation, you'll see there are no historic results or reference to our foreign estimates and so forth. What we do refer to is our March 20 announcement, where we put out a declared foreign estimate and our exploration results. So just wanted to set that scene for people. There is a link in this presentation that will take you to the announcement that sits on our website, but also sits on the ASX platform. So hence why there are no historic results around the Ulator uranium project. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, again, just to help sort of set a bit of context, a bit of framework, and it really forms part of the justification, or a big part of the justification, as to why we've gone into Kazakhstan and taken on a uranium project and taken on this particular project that we identified. So we really see some really important success factors for a company such as C29, but any sort of junior resource, regardless of which commodity space you may be in. We see some really key ingredients that are big determinants of success or otherwise. First of those, Western-friendly investment jurisdiction. So that is absolutely critical. And I'll put a little bit more context to these as we move through the presentation. A very transparent and open regulatory and approvals framework, again, very important. Worked in some jurisdictions where that's less than clear, and it can be very hard to navigate and know what comes next and what is next and what to expect and how to communicate that to your investors and potential investors. It becomes very difficult, and often what you think's coming next isn't coming next, and again, that makes it very difficult to navigate a junior company. Okay, you need a jurisdiction that provides long-term political stability for your commodity. And we see this as uranium mission critical. It's very difficult to navigate through the uranium arena if the jurisdiction you're in doesn't have the political support for uranium. Okay, tier one scale potential. Sure, you hear that bandied around a lot, but we use terminology such as world-class. Tier one, what we mean, size matters, and it really does matter. And we mean that in the context that if you want to have as much optionality available to you when you're moving forward and moving through your development and moving through your JORC resources and on from there, you really need as much optionality as possible. And if you've got line of sight and you're building scale towards that tier one expectation, that opens up a lot more optionality for them. High grade. I'm sure you've all heard the old adage, grade is king, and that is still as true today as it's ever been. And I see that as cutting across any commodity, regardless of the commodity you may be in. Grade is a huge determining factor of your success in the future development years. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so that just sort of lays a little bit of context as to how we view the world and how we view project development and project selection. Okay, the sector, uranium, we've spoken about that. We're in that. There's an ever widening gap in the supply and demand, and certainly there's a number of countries that are really, moving back to or switching to, a strong belief that nuclear should form quite a part of their baseload power generation moving forward. So there's certainly a large shift across the world towards that. Kazakhstan, we see it as a very favourable jurisdiction. Our experience there so far has been nothing short of fantastic. It's a modern mining code. They adopted largely Western Australia's mining code in 2018 with the necessary changes required for their own jurisdiction, but largely based on the Western Australian mining code, which is a globally respected code. It's very transparent, very, everything's laid out as to what you need to do and the steps to follow. Kazakhstan's number one uranium producer in the world. They supply about 43% of the global market. So they are a huge piece of the global market. And almost more significantly, they do that at the lowest cost and lowest cost by a significant margin. So they are a globally significant player in the market, and hence part of our rationale for wanting to enter that market. Our initial acquisition was to acquire a project with historic results, and I refer everybody to our March 20 ASX announcement, where we announced that we had done a deal on a transformative high-grade uranium project. Okay, part of that was the potential greenfield and brownfield upside contained within that Uli Tau tenement, but also as we then started to formulate our strategic plan. But critically, within the tenement that we initially acquired, we saw significant greenfield and brownfield upside to that tenement. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, our strategic plan. So our game plan for the next few years is quite straightforward. So this coming quarter, we expect the drill to start spinning. Our geologists are in the process of mobilising the site now. As we very recently announced, we had our initial approvals to start ground engaging work up to but not including drilling while we finalised our drilling approvals. So our team's on site, we're mobilising to site at the moment, and we'll commence tenement-wide soil sampling and other geological works next week. So very exciting time for us, and we expect drilling approvals hot off the back of that and the rigs to be spinning consistent with what we've said from the beginning, which was that we expect the rigs to be spinning in September, and we still believe we're on track to deliver that. Okay, so our game plan is to rapidly grow our prospective tenement footprint in Kazakhstan, and we've already started doing that with recent announcements showing applications submitted, and our first of those applications being the southern tenement already been granted. 15 calendar days, our tenement application was granted. So again, it really shows when you have a regulatory framework that is supportive, things can move very quickly. I've been in this game 25 plus years. I've never experienced a tenement granting in 15 days. Okay. As we start to really build out our strategic footprint, our strategy is to grow rapidly, grow our impound high-grade resources as we move through the coming years, and rapidly scale C29 into a globally significant uranium development company. That is our game plan. Build significant inventories at scale and grade. That gives us as much optionality as we can create. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, just our corporate structure. Very quickly shows a very tight register, 130 million shares on issue, so very, very tight structure, very small number of options on issue, good cash position. The 5B, recent 5B, put us at 2.2 million cash. And, that really needs to be also viewed through the lens that Kazakhstan, in terms of drilling and those types of operations, materially cheaper than our peers. So as an example, right now we're getting feedback from particularly Canada and our peers in Canada. They're paying up to $900 USD a meter for drilling, and they're drilling at depths. They're drilling, they're some very deep ore bodies over there, and they're drilling to significant depths. So the costs are racking up very quickly. For us, we're in the first instance targeting a lot more shallow drilling, but we're also looking at around $100 a meter for drilling USD. So a material difference, and I can make our dollar go a lot further. And that's a really important factor when you're looking at us and comparing us to any of our peers, is that my firepower goes a lot further. And, particularly when you look at the context of genius raising and potential dilution and those sort of things, it's a pretty big factor. As I said, I can make a dollar go a lot further than pretty well any of my peers. Okay, so they're the key takeaways off that slide. Next slide, please. All right, board and management, won't bore you for too long there. I'll really just focus on myself and just to give people a sense. I've been in this industry 25 plus years. I came originally from a mining operations background. I've worked from absolutely junior ranks to the most senior levels of large and small scale gold to some of Australia's largest iron ore operations. I've led teams that have built greenfield to production operations on a number of continents, including here in Australia. Spent 12 years on ground in some pretty tough jurisdictions through West and Central Africa. So I've navigated through some fairly difficult jurisdictions. And most importantly to C29, all of that experience and quite a lot of wealth of corporate experience, but also experience on 2 uranium development projects. So I've been in the thick of it on early stage to later study phase and so forth of developing uranium projects here in Australia, and I've seen firsthand the political challenges, particularly in Australia, of trying to develop a uranium project here on our home turf. But why I thought it was a much better idea to look elsewhere. And, that's what we've done. So that's just a little bit of my background. Obviously, the board, David Lease, chairman, non-exec chair, James Myers, non-executive director, and Elsa Osborne rounds out the team as the company secretary, CFO. She's also a tenement manager and corporate secretary, so she wears a number of hats, as we all do in these junior companies. So yeah, very, very solid, well-experienced team, significant depth of mine development experience on multiple continents. So yeah, the company is in very safe hands. Next slide, please. Okay, where are we? We're in southern Kazakhstan, and you'll see on this map, you'll see we really are in the thick of it. So that is the largest uranium producing precinct in the world. And, we're sitting down there alongside it. So we're perfectly positioned in a country that obviously is very proactive in terms of uranium development. So that is uranium production central. 43% global supply comes out of that region. Right country, right neighbourhood. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, as we've just touched on, it's the most prolific production region in the world. It's also the lowest cost production region in the world by a significant margin. Some of the stats show almost up to 50%. So, very, very significant. It's a friendly jurisdiction to foreign investment, as we are learning, and it's friendly for uranium mine development. And again, go back to our, measures for success. That is one of them. No point being in a jurisdiction that is not friendly towards the development of a uranium project. Okay, the neighbourhood, we're in the south, so we're very blessed in terms of weather. So, by example, we will drill for about 10 months of the year. If we're in the north, that window would be tighter, but in the south, we have a window of about 10 months per year. Again, compare that to any of our Canadian peers, for example, where they have 2 to 3 month windows per year to drill. So again, I can make a dollar go a lot further, and I can also drill for a much broader period, which means you don't have to stick as many holes down at the same time. You can have a few less rigs running and make sure you're doing all the right geological work and maximising where that next hole goes, not putting them all down in parallel because you've only got a very, very short window of time in which to do it. We can do it in a much more orderly fashion, learn more about the particular geology where you're drilling before we have to race and stick the next holes down. Therefore, again, not only are we making that dollar go further, we're making sure that each hole is strategically drilled in its best location. So I think that really puts us in a bit of a unique situation. We're just south of historically what was the Soviet era's largest operating uranium mine, Bada. As a crow flies, we're about 15 kilometres south. We've interpreted, and we believe, our geologists strongly believe, based on all of the historic information that they've been able to pull together, that we're sitting in the same mineralised trend. And, you'll see a map and a couple of slides that shows where we think that's interpreted and why we've pegged the ground we have. Okay, our nearest local community is the village of Aksuek. They're about 20 kilometres from the project area. I think it's fair to say we've established a really good relationship with that village. We've had a number of public consultation days. Myself and James Murray went to the last public consultation day. We were part of that process, and we were very welcomed by the community, and they're very keen to see us really establish ourselves out there and really get these projects moving. They're very keen to see that happen, and we enjoy the full weight of that support. And again, that's not always the case. Site access in place, very good access of a 4-lane highway. The ground is very level. There's no trees. There's some scrub, so it's almost walk up, drill ready. Very little preparation work, very low cost preparation time and work to have rigs operating. So from the analogue of what looks like the perfect exploration site, this is it. There's no mountains, hills, lakes, rivers, nothing. It's very flat, barren, almost treeless, and basically drive up and start drilling. So perfect exploration site. 3.5 hours from Almaty. Almaty is the largest city in Kazakhstan. It's in the south, but it's not the capital. The capital is Astana up in the north, sort of 500 kilometres from the Russian border. But Almaty is in the south and is the largest city. So 3.5 hours from there on a very good multi-lane highway. So any service provision, any requirement, anything that we could ever need can be got from Almaty. So very blessed to be so close to such a major district. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, getting back to the keys of success. Grade is king, and always has been and always will be. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we won't click on this link, but if in your own time, if you click on this link, it'll take you to our March 20 announcement, where we announced that we'd acquired the Transformative Highgrade Uranium project. When you click on that link, the two key things that you'll take from that is, one, we have a foreign estimate already in a very small area of the Ulitau tenement of £9.8 million at over 2,700 ppm. So again, you talk about grade and you talk about potential scale from a very, very small piece of our tenement, much larger tenement, and we're building a significant tenement, contiguous tenement footprint, which will really lend towards tier one scale with grade. There's not too many uranium projects in the world that can talk to that sort of grade. The other important piece of information that you'll learn from that announcement is a table showing some of the greatest hits. And some of the greatest hits from that earlier Soviet era exploration, intersect widths running 30-40 metres from surface, literally from the ground zero, 30 to 40 metre width intersects running from 5 to 7,000 ppm. So again, potential scale with those kind of intersect widths with grade that is rarely seen in the uranium sector. So we're very blessed, and they were two of the hallmarks of what excited us so much and why we went after this project originally. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so again, getting back to tier one scale and so forth, we recently announced that this southern tenement, so the big block there, 213 square kilometres, is additional ground that we have added. We have a tenement application pending to the just immediately north of the historic Bodabaram mine, and you'll see that that's all sitting in the interpreted highly mineralised trend that our geologists have interpreted. So, really for us, the eye is on the potential scale. If we can find more of this high-grade occurrence through that trend, then the scale will be, no doubt, we will march towards tier one scale without too much trouble. So that's our strategic plan right there. That was our strategic plan. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that we've been able to, roll that strategic plan out in such a short period of time. And, really putting the pieces of that puzzle together so quickly to really be able to, start to build value for our shareholders. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, exploration program, near-term catalysts. So as we spoke about earlier, our geologists are currently mobilising to site to start our tenement-wide soil sampling program next week. We expect drilling approval hot off the back of that. As soon as we get that approval, drill rigs are ready to mobilise. The first rig out there will be an RC rig targeting some really shallow drilling, and really, in the first instance, twinning some of those historic high-grade wide intersects at near surface, really just to absolutely prove the veracity of those and enable us to be able to start to declare those under JORC compliance and so forth, then enable us to really be able to talk to real-time results and move away from this historic results scenario. So in the coming weeks, those soil samples will be going through the laboratory. We've got a laboratory that meets all international standards that can have committed to sample turnaround in about 4 weeks. So again, very well positioned from a sample turnaround time. That can be quite a problem for junior explorers getting their results through labs, and particularly in some sort of busier times of the year where it can take multiple months. So we're very blessed by being able to have that. We'll also be starting our drilling approval processes for ground as it grants, so that we can, move into early stage work on those tenements. Moving into the back end of the year, the diamond drill rig will be running. Those results will be going through the laboratories and so forth, and we'll be expecting some of those results back in the back end of this year. So again, near-term catalysts, lots of results coming back from the laboratory, lots of JORC compliant releases around those results, proving the veracity of the historic results. Our initial program is really about testing and proving the veracity of historic results, and then starting to step out and really starting to look at the brownfield, greenfield potential of the Ulitau tenement in the first instance, until we have approvals to move on to other ground. As we move into 2025, we expect multiple tenement drilling approvals, and we expect, multiple tenement non-ground engaging and ground engaging reconnaissance programs across the wider tenement footprint, multiple geophysics programs, et cetera, and multi-rig, multi-tenement programs running. All of that will feed into our first initial maiden JORC-compliant resource late next year, and then moving into 26, obviously we will be building on that JORC resource. So we expect a maiden release at the back end of 2025. So again, lots of near-term catalysts. There's a lot of action happening in country and a lot of excitement in the very near term for our owners. So yeah, that's set the C29 in a snapshot.
Shannon, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. We do have some questions come through, and the first relates to this week's announcement regarding the approval to commence initial geological work at your project or your uranium project in Kazakhstan. Do you want to elaborate on the significance of this, please?
Yeah, look, I mean, the significance is that I think there's a couple of significant things. There's, because we're the first to have gone into Kazakh and taken on a uranium project, you always get some people say, oh, gee, Kazakhstan, really? Can you really get anywhere there? Will you ever really get approval? And, very quickly, we've shown the market that, yes, you can. And then we're getting ground in 15 days. We're moving through, drilling approval processes, in my terms, very quickly. I mean, I've worked all over the world, and I've worked here in Australia, and I've worked in jurisdictions where it's taken me a year plus to get drilling approvals. So we're only a couple of months in, and, so the significance is, the speed, but also the support we're receiving at all levels through the regulatory and political system in Kazakhstan. Our presence has been very welcomed. Our game plan has been very well received, and we're hitting very, very few, hurdles, so to speak, other than what you would expect from the normal approval process, and ensuring that these things are done properly. You can't go to any jurisdiction and expect to just, roll out a drill rig and start drilling willy-nilly. There is a very well-defined process, and we've stepped through that, and we believe we are very close to having the full final approval for the rigs to start spinning. So for us, it was a significant milestone to have achieved, and achieved it in what I would characterise as very fast time frame.
And you have mentioned that it has been favourable to mine in Kazakhstan, or to operate in Kazakhstan. But can you explain the strategic benefits in a little bit more detail for us?
I think the strategic position for us as a junior explorer was, if you're going to go and hunt for uranium, well, if you've got X marks a spot to start with that's already high grade, well, that's a fantastic box to tick. If you've got a strategic, roadmap that shows, you can grow that to a tier one footprint, another box ticked. You're in a country that's welcoming of developing uranium projects, that's a huge tick. And you can't say that for too many jurisdictions across the world, to be honest. Uranium has been a political football in many jurisdictions in terms of, both exploration and development, and bans on and bans off and so forth. And, it doesn't provide the framework or environment for long-term, large-scale investment, to be honest, because, you're only potentially another election away from things going pear-shaped again. So for us, you need to be in a jurisdiction where there is a long-term stable government that is proactive to uranium development. And I don't think there's anyone can point to a greater jurisdiction than Kazakhstan for that. So for us, all of those, really fit in. Kazatomprom as a national producer, 2/3 roughly of their production is from joint venture operations, Cameco's in major joint ventures, Sumitomo, other big players. So you've already got the big majors in there. You've got some of the majors up there exploring other commodities as well. So again, you've got all the prerequisites in terms of optionality down the track when we can really, show, tier one scale, all the ingredients are there. So for us, in terms of that the strategic box ticking, we think every box was solidly ticked, which is why we, went in there with such high expectations.
Shannon, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.